so many requests to go back to how this all started. So 11 years ago, I had a little baby boy who I knew the traditional system wasn't going to work for. And I was very lucky that I had a mother who had a double PhD in both mental health counseling and educational leadership, and had started a school in Florida where we thought we may all end up. As it turned out, we were in this area, and I said, Mom, I'm sorry, but you got to move up here because I got to start a school for Connor. So 11 years ago, this talk is sort of what kicked off our speaking to people and seeing how many people were unhappy with the current system, and why especially in our area, we are facing epidemic numbers of suicides and anxiety and depression, and we're hearing more and more stories that are just so deeply concerning to what is happening to children. And our whole process started with how we help our kids reconnect inside. And remember that learning is natural and fun and wonderful. And our kids learn every day in joy. And with that, I am going to introduce you to my mom, Dr. Quirk, to kick it off.
Sherry and Michael and I are the full-time staff at the school. Katie and Ashley part-time, and we're usually lucky enough to get an intern from, interestingly enough, we always choose a psychology intern, not an education intern, because education interns come in and want to teach, and psychology interns come in and want to observe and enjoy children, and it works much better in our school. So I'm going to ask you to consider this word. I'll put a big question mark here as I talk, okay? So I'll come back to this page, but the key word here is developing, that we're going to, that we're going to look at in just a minute. What I did to make this go faster, because I know several of the parents from our school are here and they've heard the talk, and we want to get it more into the how to do it for those who are interested, how to do it in your homes. So instead of asking the audience what I usually do, I have had over 30 plus years at this point that I've given this talk, I have had the exact same answers from every audience, whether they're teachers or moms and dads or just people who love children. So I'm going to start with, what do we want for our children? What does self-esteem mean to us? And I'm going to give you, what I did is I just culled a few of the answers from another group rather than taking the time to write it with you, and see if you agree. We want them to feel good about themselves, be loving and lovable, capable and competent, have self-respect, appreciate their own abilities, enjoy life, have positive self-regard, feel worthy of everything, be independent, be able to resist peer pressure. That's been a very popular one, especially when I talk at public schools, so we can talk more about that. Have a sense of personal value. Be excited about life, and we had a big talk about this at a conference last year. Excited about life, but excited about every moment, excited about what they're doing right now. Be happy and be respectful. Anything I need to take off that list? Do you all agree with what other parents and teachers and grandparents have said? Good. Okay, then we can proceed. Katie may not know this story because she thinks the developing self-esteem talk started when Connor was born and I came up here. It did not. It started 35 years ago when I was a high school English teacher in a public high school. And I was one of 5 teachers hired into a major program of change in a huge district. A district, in Florida, the districts are much larger. The district was as large as Monmouth County. It's called Pinellas County Schools. It's the west coast of Florida. And they hired 5 teachers in that huge district to get massive grant money to start a high school program of change. It was called the 21st Century Learning Center and Teaching Arts Academy. And we were to develop the new teaching modalities that really worked for kids, that would allow it to be passed on throughout the system. Let me tell you that we were successful at first, and it has since closed because the system keeps pulling everything back. It's almost like the gravity of the system pulls it back to the way they've always done things. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but education is the only major company or corporation in America that doesn't have a research and development arm. Funny that we're still the same as we've always been. So back then, when I was teaching this first group of high school kids who, with us 5 teachers, were going to change the world in terms of what school looked like. The photo on the front of the grant was a crumbling schoolhouse. We had gotten massive training in project work and coordinating curriculum, but we had freedom that teachers never have in the system. The 5 of us had tremendous freedom to really create a fun, happy high school environment for kids, using most of the curriculum, but we were not bound to using all of the curriculum. So the first project we did was, we got the kids all together and said, you know the kinds of things you do in school. How do you want to do it? What do you want to do? And we brainstormed 100 different ideas. And what they came up with that they wanted to do was put on a health fair for the middle school kids, but a health fair that dealt with teen issues. Everything from smoking to drugs to sex to, and how all these things affect their bodies and how kids could learn in much more fun ways. And I'm telling you, these kids came in on Saturdays to build within every classroom how it worked. It was fascinating to see. I'll give you an example. The kids that were doing smoking in the respiratory system of the body built a whole walk-through healthy lung, and then they built a smoker's lung. So the kids could, and I mean floor to ceiling, they built this within classrooms so the kids could feel what it felt like to be in a smoker's lung. So nothing more needed to be said. They got the message. The kids who did it got the message. The kids who experienced it got the message. Nothing more needed to be said by any teacher. So in the course of doing this, I was meeting with the 9th grade class one day, and I was trying to explain to them a fabulous book that I had read called The Chalice and the Blade by Dr. Riane Eisler. And Riane talks about what she calls the 2 social models of society. In prehistory, when people lived what she calls a partnership model of life, and with the advancement of and changes in the world, beginning with the tribes of Abraham conquering peoples, and the progression to today, what she calls the dominator model of society. Well, I didn't like those words for kids, and I was trying to explain it to them in 9th grade language, and just as I was standing there like this, I came up with the idea of drawing it for the kids. And what I did is I drew those stick figures. And I said, that's one model of society. That's the one most of us know. What does it feel like to be the person on the left? And of course you can imagine what the 9th graders said. But I've done this with audiences in business. I worked in a prison as a therapist for 3 years. I've done it with prisoners. I've done it in the community. I've done it, I had an internship years ago when I was teaching in the school system at an AT&T branch in Florida on their manufacturing floor. I taught it to them. Everybody across the board says the same thing when I say to the group, answer from your heart, not from your head. Answer from your heart when you're that person in that relationship. How do you feel? And these are, again, a sampling of the answers. I'm sure you could give me 100 more. But people feel embarrassed. Sometimes people feel scared, depending on who's doing it. They get angry. They feel disrespected. They feel worthless, sad, afraid, hurt, mad, ashamed. Feels awful. I quoted a couple places that were from teenagers. They feel blamed. Nobody likes to feel blamed or judged. They feel deflated, anxious, disempowered, shamed, forced, rageful. The same kid said that. I remember that vividly. Nervous. And as many parents here know, I vividly also remember the 9th grade boy who said, I don't matter. Because my heart just went when he did that. And to this day, I can see him. And I said, do you want to live like that here? Or do you want to look at what Dr. Rihanna Eisler is saying about a different model of living together? And I drew it for them like that. And the entire group was like, huh? And this is the very first class I ever told it to. I've told it to many classes after that, but I always go back to that first class because they gave this to me. And they gave it to me more than for themselves. I loved those kids. They were the kids that were going to change the school system with us. And I was so close to so many of them. And as soon as they saw that, and as soon as we started talking about it, they said, tell it to our parents too. Tell it to the teachers here. They were not willing, the parents were, which was very interesting. And we talked about what does it feel like to be this person in this relationship. And again, this is from that class as well as from parents and teachers over and groups in prison and business over 35 years. They said, that feels respected and trusted and heard, and it feels good, and I feel happy, and I feel important. I feel loved. I feel valued. I feel cared for. It feels so good. A little girl said that. It was so sweet. Feels connected. I feel loved. I guess we'll get that on there twice. I don't know. I feel understood. It's playful. I like it. I feel appreciated. I feel valuable. Makes me feel glad. I feel listened to. And that same 9th grade boy, and I can see him sitting over on that side of the room in the middle of the class, and he said, I feel like I matter when somebody treats me like that. And so I said to them, and I say to hundreds of other people, where did you feel these things? Where did you feel like this? What's the first answer I got from every kid I've ever done this to? Where do they feel like this?
School.
School. Every single kid forever has said school. They say home, and they say Boy Scouts, and they say clubs, and they say, but school is where, for some reason, where they feel it the most. And when I say to them, would you like to continue living like that in school, or would you like to find ways that we can live like this in school? What's their choice? Of course, this. One of the things I want to say to you as a group is that I'm not sure if parents agree that that's where kids feel like this the most, but kids say it. And if we are going to treat kids like this, they want to be listened to and trusted and respected and appreciated, and they want to be heard. And this is what they're saying. And are we hearing them? And whose responsibility is it to do something about it? Because if we really send our children to school to learn, and to learn behaviorally, and to learn socially, and to learn to be members of the community and participating members, what do they learn when they feel like this? What child can really learn when they feel like that? So you know what I found out from that very first 9th grade class? Because we did a lot of project work and they worked in teams, the A students figured it out years ago. The only way I won't feel like this in school is to be better than everybody else. And when we took those children, those A students, superiors, and put them in project teams, they were the only ones not able to be part of the team because they couldn't appreciate the value that the other kids brought. The artist, the writer, the big idea person, the organizer, because they wouldn't shine as the superior, best person in the group. What does that say for our society, for those of us who believe that we have kids who are doing well in school? It's not, you know, the shrink in me gets to this all the time because so many parents say, oh, my kid's doing fine. No, they're not. And they're especially not if they are there. And this is so important that we all realize this isn't about, you know, promulgating Sudbury education. This is about all of us looking at what we're doing to children in the school system, in a family, in any system that lives with this belief system. So what are the beliefs? What are the beliefs of this person in that relationship? Give me some thinking from you. What do these people believe?
I know better because I'm older.
I know better because
I'm older.
Because I'm older. Boy, do kids who are free teach you that that's not true. What's in it?
On the authority thing?
I'm the authority. How much better it is when children learn to make up their own rules and work it out together. I'll teach you. Whether you want to be taught or not. You have to know how to tie your own shoe, but I'm going to really teach you how to tie it, little girl. I'm going to teach you how to tie your shoe so I can feel like a good mom or a good teacher. It's so important to understand the process of this because we've all been trained in living like this. And I still catch, I've been doing this for 35 years and I catch myself to this day wanting to do for. It's a big joke in our family, they'll tell you, are you warm enough? Do you need another jacket? What child doesn't know when they feel cold? And they'll tell you, I still do it to my grandchildren sometimes, even though they've teased me about it growing up their whole lives, because we're taught that this is how we be a good mom, a good teacher. And I am here to tell you We got it all wrong. That's about us feeling good, and a good mom and a good teacher makes it about the child feeling good after they feel good. And the only way I feel good is when I look at myself like this in the mirror. And I value myself, and I respect myself, and I trust myself. And I hear myself. What do I need to hear about myself? I need to hear my feelings. I need to hear my feelings in every moment, in every situation. I need to stop feeling like I'll take care of anything over here. I need to take care of here first. I need to keep the focus off that. The children are fine. I'm usually not. It's usually something going on in here that I want to push away that makes me go to something or someone out here. As well as our training in that's being good girls or good fathers or good teachers. Most human beings do not want to be taught anything that they can do for themselves or anything that they can learn on their own. And the fact that we keep pushing education, really textbook company making money, at children when they are well able to go on the internet and look up anything they want to know about, says that we've bought into a system that supports diminishing children's self-esteem. Thinking that the child's answers are in this book or in this teacher or in this curriculum rather than in here. So if I'm a young child and I love math, and I've heard 2 moms here today say their child does math in their heads. Great, don't put them in a book because the book will squelch the doing math in their head. That's the understanding. That's what we want to keep, hold on to, let them fly with it. They will find ways to express it, I promise you, because they're already in touch with it. We have children who love to write and make up stories. Don't teach them a prescribed, narrow 5-paragraph essay that squelches their writing. Let them flourish with it. Let them do it their way. When they're 20 or 18 or whatever age that they are going to go to college and need to know proper grammar and proper punctuation, they'll learn it like that. You know why? Because they've loved writing and they've loved storytelling and they've loved all of that. And the other part that we spend all our time in school on comes so easy to a real natural writer the minute they need to know it for something. So let them enjoy life, which is somewhere on their list, because that's what it's about. And that's what it's about at home, too. So the reason I said to you we would come back to this is it is my contention that we should never think about developing anything in our child. When my children were quite young, I heard something from just a wonderful professor at the University of Massachusetts. His name is Dr. Sidney B. Simon. He is still alive today, and I just looked him up online because this man is like amazing what he was trying to get teachers to do back in the 70s. He's very interested in self-esteem, and he was trying to help teachers and children understand what self-esteem is all about, and and to really feel it. And he came up with the concept of ILAC, telling children that's their sign. I like to say ILAC is the way we all come into the world. As little babies, I am loving or lovable and capable. I am lovable and capable. That's you as a baby, as you came into this world. Lovable and capable. That's your child as they came into the world. So we don't develop that, because no matter what we believe and where we came from, you know, the current New Age source, God, whatever your concept, creator, whatever your belief system is, a positive energy field, we know we came from goodness. We know we came from love. I went to Catholic school, and the only thing that sticks with me to this day is God is love, and he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him. And that's the connection. That's the, I don't know, it's on that sheet. One of the kids said that years ago. They feel connected. I forget where.
Next one.
It's the next one. They feel connected. You know why? I remember the kid that said that too, because these are, because they felt connected to teachers that were helping them change the system. That's why I think they said it back then. But that's what we are. The connection is here first, and then here, and then here. But it's this kind of a connection. When we believed, and you know, we all know the history of, this comes from puritanical thinking. People are bad, people sin, people have to, you know, children need to be taught not to be so naughty, so wild, so crazy. That was the belief system of the school system when they started. When I was working on my doctorate, I was privy to some of the letters back and forth between the industrialists who were founding our schools, who were talking about those wild, ruthless, what was the word that hit me? I don't know, I grew up when they did ragamuffins on Thanksgiving, and it was that kind of a word, talking about the children of the streets, the way they viewed all children. And we need to bring them in and control them and, quote, this I read, squelch the spirit of children so that they can sit still and work in our factories. That's what it's all about. Well, do we still have them sitting still in school today? Yes, we do. That's why I said no R&D arm, because that would be the first thing kids want to change. But anyway, back to Dr. Simon's ILAC. So I come into this world lovable, loving, capable, and things happen. And this is his concept. Things happen that cause us to change that view of ourselves. And that is the work of parents and teachers. Not to develop it. Children come with it, and they don't want to be told and taught. Our job is to hold the boundaries of keeping them safe, of keeping their environment respectful, and keeping it joyful, so that all learning, no matter whether it's behavioral learning or academic learning or musical learning, so that all learning is fun for children, not controlled, forced, manipulated, coerced, shamed. That's horrible for children. But more than that, it is horrible for our culture. This is why we keep spreading the word to families, because we don't want our children growing up with kids that people who feel like this either hurt themselves or hurt others in all kinds of ways. It's not just the shootings and the stealings and the opioid crisis. It's all the little hurts and angers and ways that people live together that harms the human spirit, that harms the spirit of our culture. People who feel like this live together, learning constantly accepting boundaries, because the freedom and the joy and the learning within a space that's only holding boundaries and not doing this to them allows for life to flourish in ways that it is almost impossible to get when you're a person who's been brought up in the other culture. I am still learning it after watching it for 35 years. I started a Sudbury school in Florida way before this one. And I have watched this for so long because kids live in Sudbury schools like this. And the difference that you see is hard to explain. And yet, you could walk in and say, well, what are they doing? They're playing all day. What are they learning? Lots. And they get it. You know, it's so funny. The parents of our school comment almost every year at graduation when they hear the graduation thesis of our 18 and 19-year-olds as they're leaving to pursue their adult life. They hear the story of what all of that playtime, hanging out time gave to the person. And this is the story they hear. And then they hear that kid's passion and what they're going to go out in the world to do, because they know who they are, they know what they want, and they feel free to pursue it. But most important, and the reason I was, as a young teacher and a young mom, first attracted to Sudbury education and to Rion Eisler's work of living like this, the reason I was is because all of the research showed that people were not only successful adults, they were happy, thriving adults. Lots of people from this system are successful, no doubt about it. The system creates doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs just like the Sudbury system does. I saw that years ago with one big difference, and that is the emotion, the feeling. The people who feel like this pursue their passion in very different ways. I was explaining to one of the moms this morning that I'm speaking next week to a New Jersey Asian American parenting group, and they're a great, fabulous group, really interested in children, and they've been studying nonviolent communication on their own. But one of the women texted in, she really wants to talk about perfectionism and why so many of our children are caught up in this perfectionist living that stresses them so much. What's the simple answer? Does this create perfectionism? Or does this create perfectionism? To me, it's so simple. And then what do we do about it? You know, I've spent many years in private practice as a psychotherapist undoing this. Literally, just undoing this. Because it was my experience, and you know, I worked with a pretty upper middle class community, but my experience was that most people as adults